Moo and good evening, good morning, welcome uh, to the Pinktron. With us, we've got a nude Steve Pritchard. Steve, what are you drinking?
I am on SIS recovery drink at the moment, thanks to having just completed race one and still being a little bit sweaty. So going from the toweled look to the t-shirted look for all of the listeners out there to enjoy.
And John Keenan. John, what are you drinking?
No, we got to commit to the bit. Almost done with the Odyssey Mushroom Elixir because you need a good name like Elixir. Ginger orange, and it's pretty good. I like this one. Cordyceps and lion's mane.
Yeah, I feel
I
like
have
there's
no idea
nothing.
what those taste like, but
Yeah. And Steph Etienne. Steph, what are you drinking?
Some Fanta lemon.
Nice. After a shocking deficiency last week in mushroom-related beverages,
got a kick out of that.
we're back on the horse because I've also got a Odyssey Dragon Fruit Lemonade
Nice.
with the lion's mane and cordyceps, as well as a what's the brand of this? Something and Nothing cucumber soda.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, got to keep the number 2 competition at bay. I don't want them catching up.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to hear the number 2 mushroom-based online cycling podcast.
No.
No.
I hear they're funded by like oil money or something though. So like, morally, we're the virtuous mushroom sponsored.
Yeah,
virtual
could
racing.
be even the Saudis. You never know.
Yep. It's the Saudi mushroom drinks and my whoosh.
I mean, I hate to sound like Donald Trump, but they're definitely funded by bad people. Very, very bad. They're bad people.
Right.
All right. So, do we want to start with Around the Horn or get to it with HSRL?
Let's do HSRL.
Yeah. All right. So
that's it.
This week we are starting with this is, I think, week 2 of the new series, and we are back to basics with a points race on Casse Pattes with.
Hang on, though, Sean. Hang on.
Yeah.
So, Donald Trump, I think, not a fan of the French, and also something we're not a fan of in France is Douce France, which is this week's HSRL course, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's Casse Pattes.
Casse Pattes. Where's Brent? Is this why this Brent makes it look so easy?
Yeah, I forgot about the sweaty transition. Yeah, so Casse Pattes, a 23K, or I guess 24K with the lead-in, with 4 segments, or are there 5 segments on?
No, I'm not sure. Maryline listed 4, but
okay.
I'm not sure. Zwift Power is showing me the second Marina Sprint has a segment that's timed, so
it does show it, but I don't think it gets counted in the points. Yeah. So I think because it's the finish, it doesn't, like, there have always been issues with counting an FTS on a finish segment. So it's just points there for the finish.
And Zwift Power always shows all the segments, even though if they're counted or not for our format.
Yeah. So
yeah, 4 segments.
The points distribution is 50 points with a 1 point interval on Marina Sprint, Pave, the lead-in Marina Sprint, the Pave Sprint, the Aqueduct KOM, and Petit KOM. And then 100 points with a 2-point interval for the finish. So it's 2/3 on the FTS, 1/3 on the finish, kind of as we've all grown to know and love with Herd Summer Racing. Steve, you raced it this morning. How did it go?
Yeah, well, as I was saying, just in our pre-chat, I need to learn to stop trying to do tail gunning. So first sprint, I think I finished 4th or 5th. That was actually quite fun. It's hard out the gate. Everyone's going fast, and then I think it's only about 600 meters in is the sprint. Then it settled down quite nicely, and then we got to the second sprint, and I tried to do the thing of drop a second off the back and managed to drop slightly too far, sprint through the sprint section at exactly the same pace as the blob in front of me, and finish about 11th, and then have to work really hard to get to the back of the blob just in time to hit the aqueduct, which was fun. Cling on for dear life there, and then we hit Petitcom, and that's just settled down into what do I think I can do to the top. So yeah, it's an interesting course, isn't it? Because it's one of those ones which, like, it's hard out the gate like a normal Zwift race, but then it's actually very steady until about 11Ks, where I think the next sprint is. But after that point, you have sprint, not much recovery, aqueduct, like lumpy bit into aqueduct, not much recovery, Petitcom. And you were saying earlier, John, people quite often attack over the top of Petitcom, so you have to be hard on the wheels on the descent. Steph and I found out not being on the wheels, or rather I found out and Steph didn't, not being on the wheels on that descent can completely break you, can't it? So yeah, fun little route, and classic herd racing as well. Also, everyone seemed to know the rules. I was having a bit of a chat beforehand, and there's a few people being like, "Oh, is it FAL or FTS?" And I'm like, "No, it's FTS." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Thanks for clarifying." So yeah, cool.
So it wasn't even just like what type of race is this? It was just what type of points race is this? So
yeah,
that's
people knew points. People knew it was like we're asking about that, and that just it makes the where I am in my category. It makes the racing better because like you can. We were chatting yesterday following our ladder race about how kind of the difference between actually being able to do some slight recovery in the bunch in a race, and the difference between that recovery being at threshold or like solid green in that Zwift power chart is sorry, tempo that is, isn't it? But yeah, that recovery being there and then being able to dip into sort of zone 2 is massive, especially if you're making these kind of interval efforts as well. So yeah, there's a bit of that today, which was cool.
Yeah, this is one, as you said, that 10K of just right. I'm assuming that for most of it, it's a zone 2 like group ride with your friends on the weekend, and then it turns into a hammer fest for the last half of the race.
Yeah, exactly that.
Steph, did you race it as well?
No.
Okay.
Only did the interfriendly ladder battle we did yesterday because I'm on my quote unquote recovery week or easy week.
Gotcha. So bike choice?
Really, it should be a most aero bike, I think. But
even with the Petit KOM.
Petit KOM's pretty draftable as well. Like it's when it goes left, work hard. When it goes right, rest a bit. Is the general rule of thumb on that. And I think like I just don't think it's quite steep enough. I went Pinktron because I've learned my lesson about bike ever changing off the Pinktron. Whenever I change to a different bike, I have a bad race. And I'm going to learn my lesson about not tail gunning hopefully now. But yeah, I'm just going to forever stick on Pinktron unless I'm doing a TT. But yeah, I think really, given where the primes are, so if you think there's 150 points, it's about being as fast as possible through the 2 sprints and through Aqueduct. I think those are all be on the most slipperiest aero bike you've got, sprints. And then Petitcom, like, okay, you've got like 50 points there and maybe a few GC points if you maybe get gapped, but then your aero bike might help you on the descent and that sprint at the finish as well. So
how much did things split up on the Petit KOM?
So that was the split point for most of the racing. A couple of people got off the front on the Aqueduct and were pushing to try and stay away, and the blob got back together there. Most of that, like there's probably about 18 of us in that blob, and then Petitcom was where kind of the split happened. So I think I got ahead of a few people. There's about 3 or 4 of us. Somebody absolutely flew up from behind us and fortunately caught us near the top so we could stay on their wheel. But yeah, that seemed to be where the split was. But yeah, there wasn't any, it was all a blob sprint through, even through Aqueduct, which I was quite surprised because that can be a bit where it splits off as well.
Yeah. And I guess the last question is how the groups, like, did the groups, the different categories come through in ways that made the racing interesting in any way?
Not really. I mean, so we caught the Ds before Pitycom. I don't know if we caught the lead Ds. We caught a big group, and the lead Bs came through us on Pitycom,
Okay.
which
Not really the place to try and hold on.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those ones. If you were a faster rider that hadn't quite made the split, then I might have just sat and waited for that group to hook up with that group through the top bit of the climb and get the draft. But they just smashed through us. Like we were doing 3 and a bit, like just below 3.5. The front guys climbing in our little blob, and the bees flew through us. So they were clearly doing probably 4.5 at that point. So it wasn't a steady pass, should we say?
Yeah. Right. Any other thoughts?
Hammer Primes, like
Yeah.
it's a very classic, and actually that I'm not sure if it's because people knew the race, but the start felt slightly steadier than a normal start. So yeah, but yeah, watch out for that first one. It's 600 meters in, so you kind of like normally I try and go out the gate hard and be at the front of the group and then recover as people catch up to a blob. And this is one where you probably want to be in the middle somewhere, and then the people that are going to be sprint and catch their wheels on that first sprint.
I guess it probably did start a little more tame because everyone who knows and all the good sprinters are not trying to go out and lead everyone out. So that takes away half of the impetus of the group.
Yeah, and this could be unique to C's as well, because like it's a pretty like normal C races. I think I don't know if you agree, Steph. I think like a 2-minute effort at the very start of a race would be probably the longest a C blob goes for before it settles down. And I noticed a while ago, I don't know, it's like if you guys are racing Bs, when I last raced Bs, that was sort of 4 or 5 minutes of what felt like effort at the start. So that's sort of comfortably taking you through that 600 meters. And like, there'll be people probably trying a banner attack in Bs to go through that, go out the front and say, well, you've got off the back. So
that's funny because the last time I raced in Bs for any consistent period of time, it felt like about 20 minutes of consistent effort until I was dropped.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably you were getting dropped later than I am. I think I went through a series of not making it to 1K into a race before I was dropped. I think the first 4 races I did in B. I did also win one because I did a bullseye and people didn't know the rules. So
there you go. All right, so Steve's gonna be popping out at some point, so we're gonna rearrange and do Around the Horn now. We talked about some thoughts of things to talk about, including riding with your friends.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, Steph wants to talk a bit more about some other cool ladder stuff, but kind of kudos to Steph. Actually, he organised a virtual battle royale between some very evenly matched teams around the kind of, what was it, silver, bronze, and gold category, Steph, in the herd ladder racing. So there's a bunch of us yesterday, Steph. I'll throw to you in a second. You go through the numbers, but just really cool to race with a bunch of people that all sort of know each other and race together and against each other quite a lot. Kind of friendly, competitive. Scotland, which I think everyone is bored of now. But yeah, that was really cool. And then just nice to see the. I think I posted in the group about it, and kind of everyone really enjoyed it. But then you see posting the group of people meeting up in Meet Space as well. So I know Brent has caught up with one of the guys today when he's out and about. So Yeah, it's just great fun riding online. James Bailey, formerly of this parish, was in the race and on Discord. So yeah, always good to chat with him. And just cool. Another cool note of how fun it is to be able to ride with and against people, not only online, but kind of people meeting up and doing that as well, which is super cool. Steph, do you want to tell us a bit more about that ride? But also you've got some other fun ladder stats as well.
Yeah, but ladder racing has been quite addictive. I think first I've got to give a shout out to Dave Roberts of the Herd of Cassowaries, of the OG Herd ladder team, getting a bunch of us into this kind of format of racing. So I've been doing it. Steve was the first captain of the Speedy Squirrels back in August of last year. Then I took over after a while, and I've been doing it ever since. And since about, I think now, the ladder is technically not really any more seasons, but every 2 months there's a transfer for a period. And since I think about 2 or 3 transfer windows ago, I started the idea of doing like just for fun, end of that period of ladder racing, to do a herd ladder battle royal with all the for all the people on all the herd teams, because I think now on EMEA we have about 9 teams that cover basically all the velo ranks. The 3 past editions was all the teams, but this time, like I said in my post, which is on the Herd Racing League Facebook group, we decided to split it up to make it a bit more evenly. With now on Tuesday it was the 5 highest EMEA Herd EMEA teams, and yesterday we did with the 4 lowest EMEA teams, and yeah, it was quite a bit of fun. We had like 26 sign-ups, 22 on the start, and was just a good fun riding, because like Steve said, it was mainly more on an even playing field. And yeah, it's a fun format, and because we have so many teams in EMEA, there's the constant option, if you, for whatever reason, if you upgrade in category or in rank or downgrades, there's always a team below your current or below or above your current team you can switch to if you need to. So it's been quite fun having. It still takes a bit of administrative work on my part as a captain, but the return for it's camaraderie every week. We have, even with a small team, we had like a couple of weeks ago, we were basically, you have to be a 5-on-5, and we had like 7 people pull on a roster, and still were able to do like 2 races a week. So it's been quite good. And the other shout out I wanted to give, because is that the herd of Cobras, the big team in EMEA, achieved and is still first place on the EMEA regional ranking, and are sitting currently, I think, that 3rd on the world ranking. So that's quite a good thing. Too bad that we had on ladder a very good start also in US and America, but that kind of scene kind of died out. But it seems to be an overall struggle for America teams anyways. I think there's like 100 teams in EMEA and about 20 in all of the US. So yeah.
Looks
My
like
theory on that is it's just too few people and too many time zones, because when we were trying to organize stuff, it's like, oh, that's too late, that's too early. Like it was.
Yeah, you have the 4 time zones here in Europe. It's usually UK time and Central European time, so makes it a bit more easier. Yeah, and I know from experience talking to some of the captains like Nathan Tracta and Jeff Stoll. Yeah, it was racing basically the same teams, and you didn't have that much progressibility because you had the top of your blob of teams, and then the next team was too high to even challenge. So yeah, so I think a numbers game with the amount of teams you can race. So, but yeah, it's been quite a bit of fun, and I think just that like HSRL, TTs, or whatever, it's that team-based competition where you can suffer or have fun together on Discord while doing the race.
Just looking at the Herd of Cobras roster, and I guess no wonder they're doing so well. Mark John, Kev Fowler, TJ, Big Lion Bry, Matt DeFreitas, Orion, Cam St. Pierre, Philip Clark. Like it's a bunch of people that are, when we do the Herd Winter Racing, these are the people we expect to see at the front of these races. So I guess no surprise that they do well in the ladder.
They're like Velo rank, I think 1, 2, 3. I can't remember. I think Ruby Sapphire. Can't remember the medals, but yeah, they're on the highest rank there is. So yeah. But yeah, quick shout out. So some good people in there want to acknowledge that accomplishment, because all the herd teams, but all have been doing this week in, week out, racing each other, battling each other.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I think you guys mentioned it last week. I know Chris was talking a lot about the community aspect of Zwift and how interesting it is. And I know even like the guys who run Zwift are really receptive to how to get the community engaged, and different ideas about how they can sort of build something that lets the community do whatever it is they want to do. Because I came to Zwift not from a community of racers or even riders. I mean, there are bike clubs that do like organized rides on the weekends and some on the weekdays. So I suppose there's a community out there, but I was never really, I didn't engage in that much. And then when I sort of found Zwift, it seemed like you've got a built-in community. There's the big community of people doing the group rides, and then there's the smaller community maybe of doing races, and then people on Discord and doing races. And then I found the Patron, and then it feels a lot more approachable maybe than even going down to my local club, which is a pretty big club for the region. And just doing a group ride with them or something. But I don't know what the racing. I have no idea what the meat space race scene looks like. I suppose there is one, but I haven't looked at it. It sounds kind of terrifying as someone who, only started racing a year and a half ago. Seems like that's just fraught with crashing.
Yeah, I will say, like, I do think that you mentioned approachable, and I do think that there's something about Zwift that just like I think that a lot of the worst of people comes out because of online anonymity, just generally, right? Like comment sections of YouTube, for example.
Sure.
But I do think that the other part of that is like for people who maybe have a little anxiety about like, okay, I have to go like put myself out there in ways that are maybe a little scary. If you're, you can easily hop on Zwift and join a group ride with no one knowing who you are. You show up regularly, you start meeting people. Like maybe this is, I mean, how I got into herd racing was I just started showing up at races, and then there were people that I kept seeing, and I'd start chatting with them, and then I ended up in the herd.
Yeah.
And I think that there's more of a bar of entry for, you show up at a group ride in real life, and you're meeting those people. You gotta make sure that you know all the etiquette of how that ride
Yeah.
goes. And I mean, there have been a few times where I've considered doing a like meet space crit. There's one that happens in my town, but this was the first year since COVID that it actually happened, and I was out of town this year. But even the thought of doing something like that is like, I don't know what to do. And
Yeah.
like, I think
The big learning curve.
you got to
compared
get in with the like local bike club and how, talk to the people who do the racing, and then get a better sense through that. Whereas with Zwift, you just hop on and race.
Yeah, or even not racing, there's like an accessibility issue. I have a good friend I used to work with, and she was trying to get back into shape after some physical setbacks. And I mean, she wouldn't, if she showed up at a local, like they would just leave her in the dust, right? So she just wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. But I said, oh, well, just look for a banded ride. Look on your companion app, find a banded ride. You will always be with those people, no matter how fast or how slow you're pedaling. And she did enjoy that, I think, where she had a group, there were people chatting away on the text. Felt like a group ride to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in my early 20s, I did a brief moment of a couple of years. I was part of a meet space cycling club, going to the group rides every Sunday. So cycling is quite big in here in Belgium. We basically have a cycling club or for cyclo tourists or whatever you call it. Not even a racing club in almost every village. But yeah, it can be quite daunting. But usually in the groups that I've been in, there's quite a few, like in Zwift, there was also quite a few levels of average speed. These group rides from, I don't know, from 20 to 25 kilometers an hour, or this from 25 to 30. So yeah, but yeah, the community is something interesting. Indeed, I think I joined just Zwift to keep my fitness up. I think I joined one of the. I told the story last week. I think one of the races I was planning to do was a herd climb with Gambit. Didn't know the rules, but had a dropout on the lead-in, so couldn't participate. But on that moment, I think it was John sent me like a ride on or follow or whatever for thinking he was one of the big people of herd. But yeah, I looked into it, so think a couple of herd rides. Got through the website onto the Facebook group and joined that. I think in the beginning I was doing some racing also with the HSRL and started posting my now pretty much abandoned weekly racing experience post that I did for quite a while in the beginning, because it was new to me. But yeah, and then joined a bunch of herd teams, and got on from there. It's quite addictive to have people with the same interests racing, and think it's indeed quite quite a step. I think I do Zwift racing, but I can never probably do a beat space race on the road. I do it by myself around 25 kilometers on average. I know for a fact if you want to do racing, you have to do 40k kph on average. Yeah, I think one of my latter teammates, Connor, he does some quits from time to time in meet space in the UK. Yeah.
That reminds me of one of my early experiences was a herd beginner race, and Nathan Tracta was basically IMing me on the companion app and more or less de-essing me for the race, like giving me advice and giving me tips, and he said, oh yeah, let's get on Discord the next time. And so the next week I was on Discord, and he sort of, again, de-essed me. And then I think of Nathan's, post for Herd Beginner Racing, where it's, it's a treatise on everything you need to know about how to race on Zwift, and specifically even that particular race. So I think the entry level is just so much lower than, I feel like I'm a competent outdoor rider, but the idea of riding a race with a bunch of people I don't really know is kind of scary. Like, I don't want to be in a crash or cause a crash, or I don't know. It's a different calculus for sure.
Yeah, not to ruin the mood, but there was a fairly prominent athlete who did die within the last few days, an NHL player who was hit by a drunk driver with his brother just on the roads in New Jersey.
And I think that's also sort of illustrative of the larger direction I see biking going, at least in the United States, is like road racing or road riding was very prominent, I think, for a long time. Certainly it isn't, I don't know if it's really going down now, but it's all about gravel and mountain bike racing and riding. Like, I think people just feel that's inherently safer. Sure, you can go flying off the trail and impale yourself on a tree, but I think people feel a lot more control of that than they do drunk drivers speeding up behind you and taking you out.
Yeah, I live and ride in one of the probably safest areas for cyclists in the country. So Davis is the U.S. Bicycle Hall of Fame is in town. All over town there are bike lanes, and drivers know to be on the lookout for bikes. But you do a long weekend ride out to the hills, which it's close to 100K just to do a round trip out to do any hills. And you're going out and there's people rolling coal on you and kind of riding you up against the edge of the county roads. And so I've had a few times where things get a little scary out on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't completely stopped me, but it's been a while since I've actually done an outdoor ride when it's so easy to just hop on my bike and, as we've talked about, ride with friends.
I started recording things on Garmin recently, and it congratulated me for my longest 20-kilometer ride. What? I guess that's my longest real outdoor ride, maybe. I was surprised.
Yeah, I was about to say, kind of sad to see how it's going, but I've been reading up on it. Yeah, luckily here in Europe, the atmosphere is a lot better. Belgium has quite a good bicycle infrastructure, not as good as our neighbors in the north in the Netherlands, but I think people are more, even drivers are more accustomed to it. Like, you go in France in the mountains, and the motorists are almost trained or accustomed to bikes. They usually in lots of countries there's a say pass with that kind amount of feet or meters past cyclists, and like in France or in Spain in the mountains, if you go up a mountain pass, motorists or in cars usually tend to do that. And the funny thing is, if you're in France and somebody doesn't do that, 90% before I even see the number plate, and it's then confirmed by the number plates, it's either a fellow Belgian or Dutch or somebody from your own country to doing that, because usually, like in France, they pass you with so much room, and if they're not sure, they tend to wait up, and sometimes you have to indicate to pass them because sometimes it's frustrating. So it's that much difference. Like I said, outside of the bad weather, I think I ride almost all year outside. Do a couple of rides. I've recorded some longer rides. Doing like my longest ride was like, I think this year, and my longest ride today was about 160k, and I can say almost for certainty like 75 to plus % of that, even maybe 80 or 90, were on car-free roads, like
wow.
bicycle infrastructure, old railway trails, old railways that got converted, got paved, along canals and such things. So yeah, if I want, I can do, for the majority, even from my hometown, do a big ride and just be along a canal or river, and the only other people I see are other cyclists, people walking along that, and then the occasional when you have to cross over road. But yeah, it's
I'd have to like go to the university campus and just like ride loops around a roundabout.
Yeah, we have one of the old converted rail trails. I think it was one of the first ones in the States. But yeah, I mean, you can only go maybe 15 miles, 20K, 25K maybe. And yeah, then you'd have to kind of turn around and go back. And I'd be interested to hear, too bad Steve had to leave us, because I was visiting the UK earlier this summer, and it seemed like it was not, well, the little snippet I had of where I was, I would not be riding. Like, those roads are too narrow for cars, much less cars and a bike and a bus and all the other things that are going down the road.
Yeah, there's so some people even in Belgium have some problems with cyclists or cyclist groups going on to the road and blocking traffic. But I've heard also in the UK, it's quite an adversity from cars or other motorists against cyclists as well. It's not that friendly atmosphere as well, from what I read. But yeah.
All right. Well, so I missed the opportunity for a good transition earlier, but John did mention how welcoming Nathan Trachta was for his Zwift journey. So let's move on to Heard Beginner Racing this week is on TikTok.
Good old TikTok.
Yeah. And it seems from the post what I read, it's one lap for all the categories. So
yeah, so it is a 19K route, including the lead-in. And I mean, at this point, you've heard us discuss the route so many times. You go through the desert flats, take the Col du Saddle Springs, which is the main point where things break up, descend down to Ocean Boulevard, and then have the little punch and drag back up to the desert, which can be the final time where you can kind of break things up. And ideally, you're on probably your slipperiest aero bike, which, depending on what level you're at, something like the new Aerode or uranium nuclear, maybe the Felt AR, with either a full disc wheel, if you've got them, or yeah, something slippery.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think
Go ahead.
and yeah, I think it's also becoming it was in the past when it was always for a while a tradition to do this every month, and it seems from the schedule I could see it's end of month, every month, recurring race TikTok. I think in the past, I know Nathan said it was kind of a benchmark where you can see how if you do the beginner racing, you can see month to month how you were improving.
All right, so can move on to Climber's Gambit and get a check in on the battle for sea supremacy. So this week, oh, go ahead.
Well, I think I had my week or moment of 1 week of fame, son, and then you crushed it last week again.
It's a long climb this week, Steph. You never know.
Well. Technically, I lost an extra 18 minutes on week 3 because Zwift Power decided to be Zwift Power Rehab. That it's 25 minutes over Temple KM instead of the 7 minutes. So I'm truly out of the race now.
So this week we have 2 laps of the High Line.
Is it, or is it just 1 lap? Because the High Line's the one where you've got a 9K lead in.
Yeah, so it's,
and I think it starts at the top.
Yeah,
it's technically 1 lap, but basically the lead-in is a lap in itself almost. But yeah.
Yeah. So let's say it a different way. It's 22K of the High Line, which will get you a bit past the finish of the second climb.
Right.
The climb itself is 1.4K at 6.3% average gradient. It's on the New York KOM forward, which is, which one is that?
It's got 2 little stair steps in it.
Yeah, it's the one. It's
you stay left at the.
Yeah, and it's the first banner you cross. That's the actual banner because and you go straight and then up the steepy parts.
So this one, again, only averages 6.3%. Doesn't feel like it averages 16%. Or sorry, doesn't feel like it averages 6%. Sometimes it feels like it's 16, and that's because it does hit 16 in particular right out of the gate. Like right as you cross the banner, it's 17%.
Scrubs your speed right off. Yeah.
But there are 2 big segments of the climb that are essentially flat. So there are 3 main punches. There's one that's probably 300 meters or so to start. And then you've got a couple 100 meters flat. Another 400 or 500 meters of like 10 to 17%, and then another 200-300 meters flat, and then a final kick that hits another, hits 16% before finishing with about 100 meters flat on top. This is a tough one to pace because we're doing 2 laps, and the slowest time counts. So you don't want to fully empty the tank, but you're gonna have to go really hard on those steep bits to get a decent time. So figuring out what that approximate power that you can do for 2 laps up this is going to be an interesting challenge.
I feel like the stair steps make it so that you can't just use your 4 or 5 minute power, whatever that is.
No, it's going to be slower to do that, to just hold that power than to punch and try and
you're just going to
punch and
drag up
hold.
those 16% sections and feel like you're not going anywhere. Yeah.
I mean, the ideal pacing for me is probably doing 400 to 500 watts on the actual steep bits, and then 200 to 250 on the flats, and end up doing something like 380. But I mean, and that would probably get me somewhere in that 4-minute range. The question is, can you then repeat that? How many minutes later would that be? So the Highline route is 10.5K. Okay, so there's 20 minutes or so of recovery.
Yeah,
of recovery.
and there's a bit of climbing as well in that. So, yeah, my first biggest headache is going to be around which power, but also around which time I need to calculate the power range I wanted to be, because I haven't really done an effort on this in quite a while. So like I talked last week, my power numbers have shifted quite a bit. So it's now trying to figure out what my estimated time would be or what, and then can see what power I can deduce from that to take. But yeah, we'll see.
I would say you're probably looking at somewhere in the 415 range. 415 to 430. So my fastest on this was in a race, but it was a little under 4 watts a kilo, for a 426. I'm looking at some other people's times. So Kai Sonder has done a 4 minutes flat for 400 watts, which is probably 4.4 for him. So somewhere in that 4.3, 4.4 range is what's going to get you a 4-minute time. And then there's the, absolutely stupid numbers where you can get, Dan Pedrosa has done a 246 up this. Brent has done a 349. Matt DeFreitas 313. So yeah, I think the fast D level is going to be probably around 5 minutes. Fast C probably around 4. Fast B somewhere in the 3.5. And then fast A, maybe low 3s is probably my guess.
So Sean, you're the data guy. Is there somewhere, I know Zwift Power doesn't show it, but does Strava or maybe Garmin or somebody show actual power output over a time period?
So
on a particular race that I did on, say, it looks like we did it back in February or something.
If you've paid for a subscription.
Yeah,
okay.
If you
on
have,
Strava.
If you pay subscription, you can when you click on one of your ads, you have an analyze button, and you can see the segments, average power, and
you can get that information for free on intervals.
Yeah, well, that's what I was. Okay, intervals. Also, I do have an intervals subscription.
Yeah, and it should show you on the thing the segments as well, if there's Strava segments or but yeah, you can zoom in on it as well.
Yeah, so
It's
to
also
do that,
indeed a good suggestion.
to do that on intervals, you go to, so like if I open this past week's Climbers Gambit, you open it up and you can go to the activity power. Like you open up that activity and then there's a tab for activity power, and it gives you your power curve for that activity. And so, for example, I did 5 minutes at 350 on that, but you can, my best minute 45 was 366, that kind of thing. So you can drag along the curve and get a good sense, but it also gives, if you have set up different seasons, it gives what your all-time bests are for those power or for those time periods as well. So, did 350 in this race, but all-time peak was 380 something, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked at it in that much detail. I'll have to look back up.
And if you go through the activity, you can it will show you the spikes of your power, but you can highlight a particular section you want to check out what your average power for that section would be.
Okay.
For me, I can see at the bottom also the Strava segments do show up from time to time if you hover at the bottom. But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it will be quite interesting. Yeah, series is also always still an interesting, just pacing wise. Yeah, last week was a bit of one of the, I think for a bit less. There was about 10 seconds between my two segments. I think so. There was quite a bit of a gap, but yeah. It's a 5 minutes full effort, 5 minute 10, so it's yeah. But interesting. This race which was definitely a fun series. Still surprised that you can pace it within. Well, max, I think you separated by 2 or 3 seconds for all the events per week. Max 2 or 3 seconds, I think you got.
Yeah, and I think the biggest differences are when I open up, like when I actually have my last attempt being faster, when I'm like pushing to see how hard I can go, and it's like actually I was pacing it pretty well, and I just like opened up whatever was left in the taps to get a better time. But did that last week and it was 2 seconds faster.
Yeah, a couple of times. I think not past week, but 2 weeks before. I think I did a pretty good first. I could see it on my on my basis of my watch that it was a pretty good attempt, and then yeah, just could say let's have a pretty good time anyways now, so can see if can. I still had like the lap power to keep me in check if I was doing correctly, but yeah, those were pretty close to each other. I think for the 2 weeks before that, I was like 1 or 2 watts difference on average between the segments, and a couple of seconds, like 3-4 seconds between them. Last week was a bit more of a drop off on that second run, but yeah.
Yeah, so I this has been a really fun challenge in terms of the series, and I think it has helped get me better at pacing, because I'm not just looking at like this is what my average power is. Like last week's was very varied in terms of what the effort you needed to do, because there was steep bits, flat bits, kind of like this week. And it was the kind of thing where it was like, all right, I'm going to go really hard on this segment, and then I'm going to like try and recover in between. Ended up doing very similar power over the full effort, but very rarely was I actually at that power. But yeah, just getting that feel for, all right, how much do I have left in the tank, and how much, when do I send it? And I guess that feeling is really important for, well, I guess I was going to do my transition, but we do want to talk about bike choice. I think for this, it's a climbing bike.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's so many sections of above 10%, and it's
I did want to ask too. I mean, it's a pretty unique format, right? I mean, I think it's the only race on Zwift that's using this format, and I wonder how widely it would be taken. I wonder if people are that interested in it in other races. I think it's fascinating. You could use it in like a lap format, like the fan flats, or one of those where it's or any of the crits.
Fastest, slowest lap on a time trial.
Fastest, slowest lap on Glasgow, like crit.
A 5-lap time trial on one of the crit courses, and take the fastest, slowest lap. That would be a really interesting setup, because
sometimes you're with the group, sometimes you're not. I mean, then you throw in the drafting too.
Oh yeah, I was actually thinking time trials, but doing it as a race would be really interesting as well.
Yeah, and I think format-wise, this one, I think some people got an understanding, Climbers Gambit, the formats, and don't think with the slowest, fastest time we have to explain. Some people did understand it. I think one of the guys in my race in A, there were two guys that took it completely the opposite. One guy definitely was, riding chill in between segments and hard on the actual segments, and I think he also was about only 2 seconds apart, or I don't know, was this other dude just doing 5 watts a kilo for the entire segment. So, but yeah, it's fun to see. But I think some people understand it. I think looking at the general classification, there aren't that many, but there are a couple of regulars, so to speak, in each category that do it. And I think, maybe it got, if you go back to the normal setting of only the fastest time, or fastest the segments combined, so you can still have the people from the Zwift version, the Hill Climb Racing Club, where it's a bit more streamlined, with like John said a couple of weeks ago, with the bombarding of text explaining the race setting. But the hill climbs are a bit of a niche thing, but still find it just fun. This series was fun, but also see it as for me personally, I've always seen it as a bit of a fitness, seeing where my fitness is for certain climbs. You can see if I improved or not, or
I mean, it's really nice to have a regular check-in on where your fitness is, and I feel like this is something that almost should be mandatory for people to get an actual good like maximal fitness curve, or, maximal power curve, so that all of the rank, like racing score categorization somewhere closer to correct. Like
Mm,
regularly do an actual 10-minute climb and 30-second sprint.
right.
What were you going to say, John?
No, I hadn't thought of the aspect of like it's a regular check-in. When I look at my Zwift Power, for a segment, I can see, 3 or 4 climbers gambits, and am I getting better, maintaining? Did I have an off day? Certainly that happens now and then. So that's a good check-in, sort of like TikTok for herd beginner racing. You got the standby, what you've done before. Obviously going to be influenced by the pack to some extent if it's a big pack or a small pack, but yeah, that's another aspect of it.
It is interesting knowing what you have been able to do at even fairly recent times. So like if you've got 2 climbs that that are like 8 minutes, and in 3-4 months ago what power you did for that 8-minute climb, and then what you've done in a 6-minute climb recently, and you weren't even able to do what you did for 8 minutes 3 months ago, and it's like, oh man, this is gonna hurt. Like I can't try and do that same power.
Right. Are you coming back from a 1-week cycling vacation, or are you coming back from a 1-week eating pizza and watching TV vacation? Yeah.
All right. So in terms of pacing stuff, oh, go, Steph. Did you have more to say on this?
Yeah, I was about to say ZRS is still in testing phase, but I can't since I don't do that many. I haven't done like one of the racing races with a racing score, because I mainly do ladder racing and the occasion and climbers gambit. But I can't wait to eventually, when racing score gets open to the broader races, that it also impacts the regular races that some type of people do, because some people only ride HSRL or Climbers Gambit or a certain type of race every week, and that's their race. Yeah.
Yeah. From what I've seen James say on Facebook, it does sound like racing score is going to be opened up as the like specific way that Zwift races are categorized and scored at some point relatively soon. So things might come out of beta at some point soon.
And I can look at 2 numbers. My Velo ranking and my ZRS score to keep track of.
But I don't think that they have gotten it to the point where these other race types, so Climbers Gambit, HSRL, are going to be brought under that umbrella yet. But at some point we're going to move over to HWR, and I wouldn't be surprised if we use racing score. That is I mean, we're not doing categories in HWR, but if we use it for that, it might affect your racing score. So
but yeah, I can see it. Like I said, I do ladder races mainly that's scored on the Zwift Racing app score, but I could see it, since it's technically a scratch race only with 10 people, it would fit that format for the Zwift Racing score as well. And basically HWR, those ladder races are under the E category, because it's just a mix of depending on your teams. But I can see HWR, which is also under the E category. The not thing is, I can see it's being also in the Zwift Racing score app being calculated, like Zwift Racing app does also that calculation between there is being based on predicted final result, but yeah, I can see it coming in. Like I said, first all the scratch races, and then in due time to the more niche, like the TTTs, the hill climbs, points races, and different kind of formats. But yeah, looking forward to it, because as a ladder team captain, you can only say that the Swift Racing app version of the scoring is quite a good indicator. Seems to be a good indicator of tracking and moving you up points accordingly. Then maybe like it's now basically based on power curve category system. So yeah, who knows? But looking forward to it.
So the final race that we know what is happening for is Stampede this week. So it's the time trial series. So flex those pacing muscles for a 18K time trial around Island Hopper, which is basically a full tour of all of the Wurakazi roads. Takes you around the full complex of islands, first on the inner roads and then on the outer roads. And you do, I think the hardest segment of this is doing the Mech Isle climb, followed by the Shisa climb, around halfway through. Should be a 30-ish, quicker if you're quick, but somewhere in that 30-ish minute range for a time trial. There's a bit of dirt, but there's no reason not to just be on a time trial bike, your fastest aero time trial bike.
And then you can curse being on your heaviest bike going up those two climbs.
Yeah, but they're
not that long.
Short. Yeah,
yeah,
they're relatively short and they're relatively flat for climbs. And then for next week's HSRL, you're going to hate Marioline, maybe, because we have our first scratch race in the series on Peak Performance, which does go up the grade, and the top of Epic. So it's going to, but you then have 15K from the top of Epic to the finish. So there's going to be, things will split up considerably, and then there's going to be time for things to come back together if you end up with a faster group behind, or with, maybe you stick with the pack rather than trying to chase the strongest riders, and it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. We'll talk more about it next week.
Yeah, and potentially, if because it's been quite good, I think HBR, Air Beginner Racing, is probably next week on Innsbruck Ring, depending on your categories. I see 2 or 3 laps, depending. Just a wild guess, but that looks potential range. So also another nice course for beginners.
Yeah, I think everyone loves Innsbruck and hates the leg snapper, at least the last 10 seconds of it.
I mean, it's certainly better than the grade. I'll take the leg snapper over the grade any day of the week. I'm not even going to think about that. I'm just, I still need to do this week. So.
All right. Anything else? I know we've already done our around the horn, but if anything has come up. All right. Well, with that, thanks to Steve Pritchard, who had to run off with his partner to watch a movie. Thanks to John Keenan. Thanks to Steph Etienne. And we will see you next week. Moo and good night.
Everybody.
Yeah.